Hello, guys, everybody. I hope you all can see me here. Okay, let's do this here. Okay, nice to meet you, RJ Naga. So, guys, this is my podcast number 9. Today, I'm going to be speaking about some interesting topics here, and I'm also going to do a little bit of follow up on what I was talking to you yesterday on my podcast number 8. So, but please feel free to join in. I hope you will enjoy my podcast tonight. So I'm doing a podcast, even a video podcast, even in YouTube as well. I don't know if I have the link, but you can always go to my. Uh, I think it's. I'm pretty sure my YouTube account has been connected to my Bigo as well. So guys, for YouTube viewers here, I do have somebody in. Well, actually, it's connected to Bigo. I'm just going to put my link here so that you all will know. Facebook, okay. Okay, nice to meet you, RJ Naga. I'm seeing Diva as well here. Cool, cool. All right, okay. Okay, all right. So, guys, like I said, I usually do a podcast, a video podcast every week, say about twice or thrice, and usually I speak about any topics that I want. Usually, I talk about anything that is under, diplomacy, foreign relations, international relations, discovery, politics, uh, archaeology, science, pretty much anything that is very interesting. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think this is about right. Okay. Okay. Nice to meet you, Poke Poke. I appreciate it. Okay. Thank you very much. So basically, what I'm going to be talking to you about tonight is a couple of topics here. So some of the topics that I will be talking to you about is public and cultural diplomacy. All right. Okay. Nice to meet you. Right. So here's the question here. What is public diplomacy and why is there so much emphasis on it today? Uh, you know, I think the whole burning question about, going back to what happened, um, you know, in, North Korea and also North Korea with the United States versus United States. And, you see a lot of tension in the Middle East as well. If you think about, the situation that's happening in Syria, I think it's in Yemen as well, and even in India as well. I think it's very prevalent that there's a lot of divisive politics that's going on. So I think what we need to do is we need to sit back a little bit and kind of realize that we as human beings we kind of need some kind of a diplomacy here, which is very important. So there's different kinds of diplomacy. Okay, so I think what I'm going to start here is I'm going to define what is diplomacy. Okay, and I'm going to go by Satchow's diplomatic practice here. So Satchow's diplomatic practice here, it's so this is like the Bible for diplomacy. Okay, and so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go very briefly on the definition of what is diplomacy, and maybe I can, talk to you more about it later on. Okay. So according to Satow, and I quote, diplomacy is the application of intelligence and tact to the conduct of official relations between governments of independent states, extending sometime also to their relations with dependent territories, and between governments and international institutions. Or more briefly, the conduct of business between states by peaceful means, right? Unquote. So what does it say here? The use of diplomacy, I think it's very important in today's time. Why I'm saying this is because the use of intelligence, the use of friendly atmosphere, and also professional atmosphere is very important to communicate with nations or different cultures, different ethnic backgrounds, and all that stuff per se. Okay. So, anyways, guys, I am from. You call my state Nagaland. Okay, I'm from the state of Nagaland, which is located in the northeast part of India, and it is part of the eight sister states. Okay, in the northeast part of the region, we have eight sisters out there. Sorry, guys, I have a question here. What is it about? Lecture class or something? Zendi, see, Zendi, actually, it's not particularly a lecture. I usually say this with a pinch of salt, actually, and also with moderation. Because why I do this is because I want people to comment and debate about what I'm, pointing out or what I'm talking about regarding the topic, and maybe, we can all get some feedbacks and debate about it. So it's pretty much, a video podcast. So video podcast would be called a radio station back in the day. But yeah, so this is what it is. Any topic, so you can please feel free to join in. You can always ask me questions, and you can correct me as well. So yeah. So what's the topic today? So Zendi, today's topic, like I said, I'm going to start off with public and cultural diplomacy. I think that's where we'll start, and then we'll go from there, I think. Okay? All right. Okay. Something new and big O, cool. All right. Okay, awesome. I think maybe I can contribute to something new here. So anyways, like I said, I've already defined what is diplomacy, right? And I think today what we're going to define is what is public diplomacy. See, public diplomacy is a little different animal. Okay, it's a little different from my perspective. Okay, because if you look at what public diplomacy is, I'm going to define what is public diplomacy, and we'll go further from there. Okay. So according to Berridge and Lloyd, okay, Lloyd is my professor. She was my professor for diplomatic studies in England. She writes a lot of books, actually. So I'm going to quote from her and one of the gentlemen called Berridge. Okay, they published this book in 2012. Okay, it is the Dictionary of Diplomacy. Okay, so what is public diplomacy? Public diplomacy is the exploitation by professional diplomats and foreign ministers of the rich opportunities of modern communication technology to engage in a dialogue with foreign publics, albeit with a view of persuading them more effectively to their point of view, unquote. So I think what the definition is talking about is, why we need diplomacy today, particularly public diplomacy and cultural diplomacy, is that, we're living in an age of biological warfare. We're living in an age of nuclear warfare. We're living in an age of hunger, poverty. So, the warfare kind of comes in very different palettes, I think. So what's happening in the United States also and in China is that they're having a trade war. See, trade war is not really a good thing for any countries in the world, right? So, but I'll tell you what, it is what it is, and I think India is at the verge of going into a trade war as well, unless Trump makes a deal when it comes to India. Why? Because I think what Trump is saying is that India is not going by the trade norms, and is pretty much using up United States, taking advantage of it. That's what Trump is saying. See, I don't know if that is right or wrong. I don't know if it's credible or not. It's probably credible from an American perspective, but if you have to think from an Indian perspective, see, I see there's a two double-edged sword to it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, who is right and who's wrong, but I think we have to come to a terms where the ball should be in the court of the right hands, right? And which is the international uh, setting, which is the international platform, where who is winning and who is losing. So the more people who are losing should understand that, oh, there's something going on here. Okay. So that's why I said this is kind of important topic, and I kind of want to bring this up because even Trump is coming to India as well. So, anyways, the term public diplomacy was first used during Cold War. If you realize, the Russian scare tactic and the United States aggression was very prevalent during the Cold War. It almost ended up in World War III, right? And this whole World War III is also happening, at the ticking time bomb with, China and United States, right? So we need to talk about it. So it was first used during the Cold War, right? When it was employed as a substitute for propaganda. See, the use of public diplomacy could be propaganda. Okay, it could be journalism. It could be, I don't know, movies. It could be songs. It could be any of that sort. So it is part and parcel of a country, right? Of the country's way to, use opportunities in the modern communication devices per se, like you and me, right? We're using telephone. And how do you use the telephone? How do you use the mobile phone? That's really up to you, right? Oh, okay. Hey, Lanu, I appreciate for coming in. Okay, so today I'm doing my podcast number 9, and I usually do it, every week, twice, maybe thrice a week. But I'm actually streaming on two platforms here. One is my telephone, which is on Bigo, and one is on YouTube here. But anyways, thanks for joining in. I appreciate it. Okay, so the term public diplomacy was first used during Cold War times, like I said, it's very important. When it was employed as a substitute for propaganda, which were seen untruthful. Okay, so this is the author who writes about diplomacy as well. His name is Seib. Okay, Seib. You should look up his writing as well. He does very fantastic work on diplomacy. Seib, right? Okay. Maybe I'll give you who is Seib. I'll show you some of his works here. Okay, so Seib PM. Okay, he wrote a book called The Future of Diplomacy. I think you should read it if you're interested in it. Okay. Now, okay. So let me get this here. There's this truthfulness and there's this untruthfulness, and there's this propaganda, right? So why I say propaganda is very important today is because there's a lot of fake news that's going on around here. Fake news, propaganda machines, propaganda corporations, and the corporations also included in this because they're the ones who are playing the big balls. Okay, they're calling the shots. Okay. Here's the reason why Andrew Yang, the United States contender, all right? He was a candidate for the United States. He was a Taiwanese, second, I think it was, second generation. Well, I think it's first generation, okay? I think he dropped out from the candidate race because he was targeting on the corporations of the world, particularly Amazon, eBay, Google, and all that stuff. So what we need to do is we need to understand that who's pulling the cards here. Andrew Yang, he's one of the candidates who single-handedly came to, the polling station and he started his own campaign. And he's like, I can do this by myself. what I need to do is I need to have strict policies, strong policies, moral grounds where, it's not the left or the right, but it's the center, right? It's not Republican, it's not Democratic views, it's not liberal views, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to move forward and try to fix the country. So that's what he did. I think this is in parallel to what Aam Aadmi Party in India has been doing as well, which a lot of people say that they have swept, Delhi, and I think it's true. He has some very awesome policies here. So, anyways, I am seeing a lot of people who are joining in here. I appreciate it. We have Envoy, we have Mr. Mysterious, we have Bijab Khan, I Alam, Milan. All right, thank you very much for joining in, guys. Please feel free to join in. You can always give me some questions. We can debate and comment. Okay, all right. So, if you have to think about propaganda as a tool for public diplomacy, what do you see here? We see a kind of trend that started back in the day, right? So back in the day, it was called traditional diplomacy, which was the government to government communication, right? That's where we have also, I think yesterday I was talking to you about Dragonman. So Dragonmans are envoys or diplomats who kind of go to journeys with, you know, princesses and princes and kings and queens, where they can do like government to government or kingdom to kingdom diplomacy. But nowadays it's definitely different because of the power of the internet, Twitter, Facebook, and all that. So the world is evolving, and I think what we need to do as human beings is we need to evolve towards that direction, which is moving forward. Exactly. So before public diplomacy was a propaganda tool for by the machines of today's technology. Public diplomacy was government to public. Okay. Now the rise of the internet. Okay. Okay, hold on. So basically, the rise of the internet gave way to what we call propaganda tool here, which I think there's a lot of news medias and also not just news medias. There's a lot of magazines and corporate houses who use that kind of power, which is called soft power. So, anyways, okay, guys, thank you very much for joining in. I appreciate it very much. Okay. Okay, 1 second. There you go. All right. Okay, this is better. So, okay. So there's much emphasis on it nowadays because of the struggle against, well, I think there's a struggle against terrorism as well, particularly transnational terrorism. Transnational terrorism has been on the verge of our TVs. Okay, Zendi, thank you for your question here. The question is, you did your studies abroad. Okay, we have a question here by Zendi, which is, did you study abroad? So the answer to the question is yes, ma'am, or I think it's yes, ma'am, Zendi, or if not, apologies. But yes, I did study abroad. I was studying in America and I was studying in England as well. Okay, I got my BA and A from California, and I did my master's in diplomacy in England. Right? Okay. Okay, moving on. So the next question, the next question is, I'm going to ask to you and to the viewers here. I'm going to ask to myself as well. Okay. The question is, how important is public diplomacy? Right? How important is it? Okay. What derives it or what drives it? Okay. And how can we identify priorities and assess its success? Right? Okay, guys, I'm going to repeat the question here. The question is, how important is public diplomacy today? What drives it? Okay, and how can we identify priorities and assess its success? Okay, that's a very good question, I think. So, how important is public diplomacy, right? I'm going to answer that question to you, okay? So it determines how a country influences, entices, attracts, right, the rest of the world, right? So it's very crucial in winning or losing, okay, from a country's perspective. So for example, I'll give you an example, okay? Let me start off by going back a little bit further on history here, because I think we can learn a lot from history, and I think there's a reason why people say history rhymes, right? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna fix this here. So during the fall of France in 1940, right? 1940, who fell? France, they fell, okay, big time. So when France fell, okay, Britain and France had more tanks than Germany. Okay. So what happened was when the French people were fighting a battle here. Oh, okay. Empty Soa Iron. Okay. Thank you very much for joining in. I appreciate it. I don't think so. By the way, guys, I'm doing like a two video podcast. Okay. But the problem is I'm doing YouTube here, YouTube live stream for the first time. So I don't think people know much about YouTube, but anyways, I'm also gaining a lot of traction here in Bigo. I've been doing my video podcast, particularly on Bigo, so I think it's a very good platform here. Okay, so France fell 1940 despite all their military, their tanks, their navy, their air force. Why? Okay, why? It's very important because they did not uh, understand the well, I wouldn't say they didn't understand, but you know you cannot depend solely on military uh, superiority, okay, to predict your outcome. Is this the same username in YouTube? Well, if you go to my if you go to my Bigo page, you will see I think my YouTube link, and you can click there, and I think I'll be live there. But hey, I think this is good enough for you. But yeah, I'll try to put the link in my Bigo account maybe next time. I appreciate it, Loba. Thank you for joining in. I hope you're doing well. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to move on here. So, guys, before I go ahead, I'm going to talk to you what I was talking to you about. I was talking to you about what is public diplomacy and how it is very effective in today's world and how it is so important for us to apply those skills. Right. Thank you very much, Loba. I appreciate it very much. Okay. Thank you. I think you're also a very beautiful person in heart. We're all human beings here. So, anyways, so public diplomacy is also a driver to garner favorable public and government opinions. Okay, I'm going to repeat that again. Public diplomacy is also a driver to garner favorable public and government favors. So, if you're going to fight with one country or two countries for some silly trade war, the precaution is that the countries that you're fighting with, you never know, even their allies might stop doing trade with you or stop doing some, deals with you just because of the fact that, you're hurting their allies. So yeah, that's where I come from. United States was seeking support for the Iraq War. So if you look at the Iraq War in 2000, well, if you go back in time, it was the invasion of Kuwait. Okay, the invasion of Kuwait and the Iraq War as well. So the United States was seeking support for the Iraq War. Right. Mexico's vote in the United Nations, right, was also going on. Okay, or Turkey's permission for American troops to cross over their territories. So Turkey was trying to get permission for American troops to cross to their territories. So these are very important things because you kind of have to leverage yourself, your country, in order for you to attain those those favors and favorable decisions and deals, right? Now, a lot of people would argue with me that America is hard power, right? Or America is, some people would say America has a lot of soft power because of Hollywood. Well, that's true. That's true, and also that's not true as well. Okay. The decline of American soft power in its public diplomacy did not provide a favorable environment for its policies. Why? Because you have a lot of warfare here. You have a lot of trade battles, and all that sort here. One second, okay, guys. Okay. All right. Okay. I think this is better. So you have a lot of trade wars going on, and I think America is losing the battle for public diplomacy per se. And I think this is a very grave concern for the world because America is something of a nation where they're always number one, and a lot of people follow them, right? So, anyways, I'm going to be moving on. So, the paradox of plenty. What is the paradox of plenty, right? So we have a very interesting book called Paradoxical Prime Minister, right? Which is Modi, right? Which is written by Sashi Tharoor, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong about the title, but I think that's what it is, Paradoxical Prime Minister. And I'm kind of reading it a little bit as well. I'm in like probably in my second or third chapter, but it's a very interesting read. I think the narrative is very easy on the easy on the eyes and easy on the mind. Guys, I don't know if you guys like Sashi Tharoor, but I think he's one of the India's most brilliant and also very dynamic politicians slash diplomat slash I don't know, South Indian, right? Okay. Yes, Zendi, I think you're from India. Yeah. So guys, I am also learning Hindi as well. I do know how to speak in Hindi. I'm talking about Sashi Tharoor, by the way. Sashi Tharoor, he's the MP for Tiruvandampuram. Yes. I don't know if I know this is a very big word, but I wished, like, before I thought, like, maybe if Sashi Tharoor was the, prime minister for Congress, I think Congress would have come up a lot. I don't know if Rahul Gandhi is capable. That's very debatable, but the fact that he lost, they were swept out in Delhi. I think it's not a good thing. But anyways, he should have more experience. That's what I'm saying. I think he needs a little bit more experience. And maybe if he's the MP or somewhere in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, just do some. I don't know if he could be a minister as well. I think if he's doing that for a couple of years, I think he will gain more experience and maybe he can be the party worker or party leader. Um, but hey, some people have different journeys. So what is the paradox of plenty in public diplomacy, right? In order to identify priorities and access its success, a diplomat or a country needs to build credibility. So it's very important for a country to build credibility. For example, if you look at, say, for example, Brazil, right? What is their credibility? So if any Brazilian says, I am good at football or I am good at sports, you will take him or her seriously. Uh, I don't know about you, but I used to watch football, right? So there's a credibility when a Brazilian says he's good in football, correct? Okay, Zandy, Sasi Torres should for once hold PM post may never happen though. Yeah, I think Indian politics is almost like a spider web. As far as my observation is from this couple of years that I've been in India, but I was born in India, guys. I'm very much Indian, and I hold an Indian passport. I hold an Indian, citizenship, and I hold Aadhaar card as well. So, from my observation, Indian politics is like a spider web, and what you need to do is you need to climb every web for you to get to the top, to the mother lode. And there's a lot of webs out there, and it's tough. It's not easy. It's very tough. So, like I said, the credibility is very important. Credibility for any, yes, it's the sad truth. It's the sad truth. But, I wish that, people like Kejriwal, and I think there's a young guy as well with him. He seemed to be pretty bold. I think he has some very good, convictions for his country, and maybe people like them should come up. They're they're once in a lifetime people. Not many people come up like that. But okay, I'm gonna move on, guys. With so much information and connectivity all around the world today, we have, YouTube, we have Facebook, we have all the Twitch, we have all the Twitter, and Bigo, and all the blogs, threads, forums. You know, coupled with high participation of people both in the domestic and international affairs. The most credible one, okay, will always win the story. I don't care if you're good at something, but I don't care if you're good at cricket. I don't care if you're good at football. Fine. I don't care if you're good at Olympics. That's great. Okay. I don't condemn sports. I myself, I'm a footballer. I'm a sportsman. I played for my school team, and I played for the nationals as well for India. Okay, that was back in the day, right, when I was studying in India. But anyways, I think it's very important that these kind of web, these kind of tools of communication should be used in public diplomacy, um, to garner respect and win. There's a saying: the best story always wins. So the best story will always win, right? And that's the key to promoting positive image of one's country, right? So that's public diplomacy, guys. Also, I'm going to quote Joseph Nye. I don't know if you. So anybody interested in, uh, let me say, anybody interested in diplomacy, anybody interested in international relations, or anybody interested in history or politics, um, I think Joseph Nye is somebody that I think you all should read more about it and dig further into it. He's definitely a very, very interesting man. Joseph Nye, guys. So I'm going to quote from his one of his book. Okay, so one of his book, I'll tell you what. You should read this book, Joseph Nye. So Joseph Nye, his initials are JS Nye. Okay, Joseph Nye, NYE. He wrote a book called Public Diplomacy and Soft Power. Okay. See, I think Sashi Tharoor also kind of did a TED talk on soft power. Guys, so I don't know if you guys have watched the Oxford University speech by Sashi Tharoor, but he did have a very, fantastic speech on what the British did to India. But I think if you look at some of his videos in YouTube, particularly soft power in TED Talks, he does quote a lot on Joseph Nye, because people who are into international relations or diplomacy, you will know what I'm saying. Joseph Nye is somebody that needs to be taken a little seriously here. So he says in his book, when people are overwhelmed with the volume of information confronting them, it is hard to know what to focus on, which is very true. I mean, today, if you Google something, you will get probably about billions of hits. So it really takes a lot of wisdom and understanding to pick the right one, and pick the most credible one, per se. Right. So he says it. It is hard to know what to focus on. Attention rather than information becomes the scarce resource, and those who can distinguish valuable information from background clutter gain power. Unquote. This is in page number 100. So I think one's credibility is parallel. It's in parallel. It's the ultimate to gain traction for any country, or even like I think diplomacy plays in with even our personal lives as well, right? So, like I said, with so much information, with so much tweets from our presidents, prime minister, foreign secretaries, news media agencies, uh, what we need to do is, I think we need to focus more on the importance of the information, but not the content. Sorry, not the the amount of information that needs to be swallowed. Okay. Okay. Anyways, so I was telling you something about tweets. Tweets by the president, tweets by influential leaders, be it religious, political, government, etc., etc., etc. These all play towards public diplomacy, public and cultural diplomacy. So my topic here I've written here is post tweets and videos are tools, not the end product of public diplomacy. Diplomacy is a different business from journalism, right? Yes, diplomacy. I think it's a little different than journalism per se, right? There are merely tools. Okay, they're merely tools and not an end product of diplomacy. Okay, see, post, Twitters, Instagram, they're just tools for diplomacy, but not an end for a solution, right? I think it's very important. So, for example, if you're trying to help a family in India, right, who is suffering from trafficking, right? Say a group of girls who are trafficked, and the pimps and the gangs and the mafias, they're trying to cover up. So I think the best approach of diplomacy is not to use your tools such as post, tweets, internet by putting out in public. But what you need to do is make that as a tool. Make that as a tool, but not an end to your solution. I think that's very important, because if you kind of reveal all the secrets of their plans, of all the goons who are trafficking women in India, then they're going to go somewhere else. They will hide somewhere, and they're good at it, right? And that's when you know that's when fire starts, right? Fire just doesn't start because you know there's grass there. There's always a strike of fire that needs to let the fire go off, right? I mean, go more into it. So public diplomacy is larger in scale, right? It has more dimensions to it. Leaders and foreign ministers use of Twitter to promote short snippets of their ideas, such as our dear Prime Minister, or our dear Sashi Tharoor. I think Sashi Tharoor is definitely a very, very Twitter guy. So they are also a means to initiate communication with foreign leaders in traditional government-to-government diplomacy. I quote, okay, Constantino. Okay, Constantino is also a very, very good diplomat. He writes fantastic books. So one of his books I would suggest you to read here, Constantino. So he wrote with a couple of other people as well, but the book is called The Sage Handbook of Diplomacy, SAGE, Sage Handbook of Diplomacy. It's definitely a very, very dense read, but you can download in PDF as well if you want. Okay, so he says in May 2012, the Swedish Foreign Minister Carl Bildt was unable to connect with the Foreign Minister of Bahrain, right? So the foreign minister of Bahrain during that time, 2012, was Khalid Al Khalifa. Khalid Al Khalifa, right? So Khalid Al Khalifa was not getting any connections with the Swedish foreign minister, right? So guess what he did? He tweeted him and got an immediate response on Twitter, on the phone, unquote, just like that. See, the power of the internet is so powerful that the tools that we have are very sharp nowadays. But sometimes the sharpness of your tools could even cut you very deeply, right? Okay, so that's the kind of like the gist of Twitter and Instagram and public internet media messaging systems. Okay, now if you go to the journalism aspect of diplomacy, it's a little different, I would say. Journalism diplomacy. So journalism wants news that are fast-paced, right, bright, and catchy hooks that are edged with lesser content, right? It removes the diplomatic nuts and bolts of what is really going on behind the scenes, right? Diplomats are also in it for the long run, whereas journalism, they are for, you know, uh, the curtains and the lights and the shoes, right? They are conducting routine businesses bilaterally. Who? Diplomats or diplomatic missions or just you and me in general. I think diplomacy goes to anybody, anybody. Uh, for me personally, I think diplomacy is for your daily use. Okay. So the conducting of routine businesses bilaterally and multilaterally in various communications platforms, for example, speeches, oral statements, remarks, conversations layered with written communiques, demarches, notes, readouts, and press releases, etc. So I would say journalism is not primarily a tool or medium of diplomacy, but it is also, I think it is more on the fast, bright, catchy, kind of like a platform. So yeah, I hope you get that. So now the last one that I'm going to be talking to you about, okay, before I bore you all, I hope you guys are not getting bored, but I'll be very brief here. What is cultural diplomacy here? And what does it achieve? Cultural diplomacy. Okay, I'll tell you the definition of cultural diplomacy here. Cultural diplomacy, it could be defined as the promotion of facilitation. What was that again? No, it really is. All right, okay, awesome. So it could be defined as the promotion and facilitation of the exchange abroad of states' ideas, values, traditions, and other aspects of culture, right? So I'm going to repeat again what is cultural diplomacy. According to Cultural Diplomacy Doesn't Work article in 2012, it says it could be defined as the promotion and facilitation of the exchange abroad of a state's idea. State's idea means a country's ideas, values, traditions, and other aspects of culture per se, right? Unquote. It tries to achieve and promote institutions at home and abroad. That's what cultural diplomacy does. I think in Northeast India, what we have is we have a lot of festivals, and that's part of the cultural diplomacy as well, if you don't realize. Uh, but it's not very. It is catchy. It is bright. It hooks a lot of tourism sometimes, but we don't. I think Northeast doesn't have a kind of like a rigid system where there is this you know books and tallies where we can always count on, right? It's my dog is here, guys. See? No, I can't see it. Ah, here. Oh my gosh. See? Okay, get up. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. So sorry. My dog just joined in here. All right. So, anyways, I was saying, for example, it tries to promote institutions abroad, right? So I will give you an example. I think universities and institutions and education institutions is very important for cultural diplomacy. Why I say this is because if you look at China, what it's doing is it's influencing other countries as well on on their um, on their cultural aspects as well. So there's a lot of Chinese characteristics in the Belt and Road Initiative as well. If you think about it, Belt and Road Initiative is a policy that was passed on, that was legislated during President Xi time, and it is a multi-billion dollar policy, right? And it is touching lives in many parts of Africa. What it is basically saying the content of that policy, Belt and Road, or AKA also known as One Belt, One Road Initiative. Um, this is kind of like the new Silk Road, right? See, the new Silk Road is part and parcel of Chinese diplomacy, right? It has a lot of characteristics of the Chinese ancient civilization and the modern civilization, okay? And what they do is they're trying to penetrate countries, not just so basically Belt and Road Initiative is what it is a policy where they go to different countries, they build roads, infrastructures, they build schools, hospitals, they dig wells in Africa where there was no water for centuries. Imagine, and people are like, oh my gosh, there's like heaven sent, thank God for that. And which I think is a good thing, people share experiences and there's a transfer of knowledge and technology, right? There's a transfer of work culture, there's a transfer of culture, and the world becomes a smaller place, right? So, anyways, what happened there is there's a lot of investment in Africa, particularly by the Belt and Road Initiative implemented by the Chinese government. So, there's a lot of new infrastructures, trains, buildings, airports. Nice to meet you, Lion. I appreciate it for coming in. Hello there. Follow back. Okay, all right. I'll follow you back right now. There you go. Follow me back as well. Okay. So, anyways, so that's the thing. America doesn't really like it, but they're benefiting a lot from it. India doesn't like it, but I think India should really consider on being an ally. In this initiative, they can always work together for a deal. I know Pakistan is very involved in it with their Gwadar port. I know Sri Lanka is very into it as well with their ports. There's African investment, billions of African investments, so etc. But there is a culture of diplomacy here if you don't realize, because they're building a lot of schools in Africa and in Southeast Asia as well, and even in the Middle East, right, where there's a lot of Chinese characteristics in its educational and institutional, you know, policies, right? Anyways, I'm gonna move on here. So where was I here? Okay. So during the Cold War, let me just go back in the West again. Okay. With the Soviet threat, Americans focused on expanding cultural diplomacy by using Hollywood studio products and actors and all that stuff. Same thing with Bollywood as well, such as movies, newsreel, radios. I think a lot of science fiction as well, and there's a lot of books, art, music, etc. So this became a very effective propaganda by what do you call the Western powers, and particularly in America, and they used that tool to create patriotism at home, right? So that was a very key diplomatic public diplomacy agenda here. Is that okay? We're going to create this new world of Hollywood and a new society, a new world, a new utopia where we're going to let the world know that this is a very new utopia and a new civilization. And what we're going to do is, once we achieve that, we're going to garner nationalism at home and abroad, right? It's funny because a lot of people now, a lot of people think that, oh, um, I favor Trump, I favor American policy besides China or Brazil or South America or, I don't know, Greenland or Antarctica or whatever. They don't realize that they're actually they're being so nationalistic despite the fact that they're not even a national or a citizen of America. See, that's the tactic here, man. You gotta understand. There's a propaganda tool here. Okay. So, anyways, it eventually eroded the faith and communism that lay defeated behind the Iron Curtain. Uh, so the Berlin Wall finally fell in 1989. Okay. Now, what happened was it was the rise of China. Now it was the rise of the East. Okay. The rise of the East actually it didn't happen just like that. It happened many decades. The whole rise of China's economy didn't just rise like that. It took a lot of years. The China is a fascinating country because China is the only country which is in par with the United States, right? And well, India as well. India is coming up. I think India will come up, but for now, I think there's a lot of hidden warfares that's going on with the United States of America and China. If you don't realize, you know, um, a lot of people would agree on me, and a lot of people will not agree on me. Okay, but the whole aspect of the corona virus. Okay, I know a lot of people would think, oh, this is an outbreak by Wuhan in Wuhan, and it's true. Yes, it's true, and it's spreading. Yes, it's spreading. I'm not going to go back in the like 1800s where I can talk about different plagues that plagued, for example, the Spanish flu or the Death Plague or whatever. I'm just going to go back a little bit. What happened during World War II? Okay, during World War II, what happened was the United States went into a full-on battle with Asia, particularly well before the United States, the British, the Russians fought against Japanese, and they lost. And the Western people, Western nations, they were like, "Oh my gosh, what happened? Like such a small country." I think it was 1906. I think that was the Russia and Japan war. Don't count me exactly, but it's approximately 1906 or somewhere around there. So Russia fought against, you know, Japan, and they lost big time. And it was a very big blow for for the United States and the Western allies. Because if you don't realize this, the whole United Nations actually goes back to the League of Nations and the Brotherhood of the Western civilization. They wanted to control the world, right? And the League of Nations gave birth to the United Nations, which was primarily, if you look at the laws of the United Nations, for example, if you look at the Vienna Convention, right? The Vienna Convention and the Security Council and all that. If you look at the laws, it's particularly laser focused on the benefits of the Western bloc. Exactly. So what happened now is the rise of Asia. Uh, the West started seeing it as a threat, and yeah, World War II happened. World War One happened because the Western people were having their own agenda. It didn't start in the East, if you realize this. It was all the Western people's problems, the whole World War One and Two. If you realize, India had sent so many troops just to fight their own battles. A lot of people from Nagaland went as well in France, if you don't realize it, and Germany as well. And the funny thing is, I believe that a lot of soldiers, Naga soldiers, Naga people from Nagaland, went there, and they were like, they saw all the blonde girls. They were like, "My God, why the heck do I need to go back? I think I'll just go and marry them." So they have a lot of, soldiers, who are sent from Asia just to fight the Western battle, right? And this is what's happening. And so, well, the British had a warfare. It was a very silent warfare, which was basically opium warfare, and the British had a warfare with India as well. Yes, it was a lot of attritions. Jaiwalana Bog, you have a lot of, you know, and also the famine in Bengal as well. So these are war tactics. Okay, these are war tactics, and the British kind of really figured out how to understand the Indian people here. They figured out how Indian people are, like from head to toe. They're like, and their mind. They're like, okay, we know these guys. Let's divide them and let's rule over them. This is exactly what happened, right? So warfare doesn't necessarily have to be weapons, bombs, airplanes, tanks. No, it there's a uh, there's some diplomacy here as well, and there's some propaganda where it plays a big role in it, and people don't realize the elephant in the room here. Okay, and so guess what happened? Yes, the warfare happened. Yes, they killed a lot of Asians. Yes, a lot of Asians divided. Africa was also divided due to slavery. I think I spoke to you a little bit about slavery as well. But anyways, I'm not going to go too much into it. And I did not talk about Vietnam and Cambodia. Okay, so going back to coronavirus, yes, it is a virus. It's a biochemical virus. Okay, now if you look at it from like uh, a different kind of warfare. Okay, I'm not proposing this theory, okay? And I'm not even proposing this kind of a tactic here. This is just my personal opinion. So please don't think like I'm kind of like indoctrinating like you guys here. Okay, this is something else here. Uh, so in Vietnam, they had and Cambodia, they had an orange agent. Okay, it was a chemical. Okay, which was sprayed in all parts of all parts of the forest in Cambodia and Vietnam, I think. So mostly in Vietnam, I think. Yeah, by the U.S. And the Western allies through plane. They dropped the orange agent, which was a chemical to kill people. Right now, it is a biochemical warfare if you think about it. This happened in World War II. Right, and guess what? Till today, if you go to Vietnam, right, you will see a lot of rehabs and all those hospitals, tons of hospitals where the victims, like we're talking like four generations, three generations of victims of this orange agent, they're still suffering. Okay, children do not have legs, arms, and eyes, and all that. So this was the symptom of the orange agent. If you really think about it. So that's what I'm saying. I just wanted to say this that coronavirus could be a biowarfare agent, where it is meant to stop the trade war. It is meant to stop the upcoming player, which is Asia, from overtaking the West, particularly America. Right? There is an agenda here. There is something that we should think about. Okay, and who owns the corporations of the world? It's the Western corporations that runs the world. The richest man, Jeff Bezos, the richest company, Amazon, Facebook. Um, yeah, I'm actually live streaming on Facebook. I hope Facebook doesn't think I'm propagating anything against you, but I think the world knows, you're very, very, powerful here. So, anyways, I'm not going to go too much into it, but going back to my conversation on public diplomacy, so the rise of the East. Now you have China, which is rising, which they had a policy, okay, which was called panda diplomacy or animal diplomacy. What is the irony here? I was talking about panda diplomacy and my dog came in. So, anyways, the irony is irony, man. It's a mysterious word. So, anyways, I'm going to say this by this is an author called Hartig, okay, in 2003 here. He wrote this very interesting article here, Hartig, Hartig. It's called Panda Diplomacy, the cutest part of China's public diplomacy, right? Renting of pandas is a good business. It is a good business. Why? Because it's good business for zoo. Oh, by the way, I don't know if anybody has been to Thailand Zoo, but if you have, please comment here as well. If you comment, it is a very beautiful zoo. And I thoroughly enjoyed Thailand Zoo. It's if you haven't been to Thailand Zoo, I mean, I swear to God, you should visit. It's once in a lifetime, and it's very beautiful. Okay, it's very huge as well. Lots of giraffes. I mean, I think all the animals, um, most of the animals of the world, kind of is there in Thailand Zoo. But anyways, so panda is the national animal for China, and for India is peacock. Or you have in Bengal, you would say the Bengal tiger. You know, guys, if anybody of you know, do we have like a national animal in India? I'm just kind of curious. What I think about India is the lion because you have the lion's head in the money in the note. But please let me know if you're aware of it. So in 1987, Hartig says the Mexico City Zoo loaned one of its pandas for 1 month to the Memphis Zoo. So Memphis is in America, by the way, in exchange of a gorilla, right? So Mexico City, they had a panda, okay, probably from China. So they loaned it to one of the zoos in America, in Memphis Zoo, in exchange for a gorilla. Not just gorilla, but two orangutans and other animals as well. While the zoos vying for status, publicity, and profit, it paid, guess what? US dollar $300,000 to $500,000 in 1987. That's a lot of money. So it's not just the animal that we're speaking, but it's the representation of the country of where the animal comes from. That's very important, right? Um, so, like I said, there is this animal diplomacy as well, which is very important. Now, in 1826, Charles X of France, okay, Charles X of France, he received a giraffe, okay, he received a giraffe from the Egyptian ruler of Pasha Muhammad Ali, okay. Hope France would stop supporting the Greeks. Why? Why the Greeks? Well, I think it's very important because they were fighting at that time. The French were fighting with the Greeks. Very important. But uh, the Egyptian ruler Pasha Muhammad Ali was so smart that he said, "Okay, you know what? In sending you a giraffe, maybe we can tell the other countries that we're tying up on certain diplomatic relations here." However, the plan did not work, but it had an impact on the French public, right? Uh, the Muhammad Ali thought he was very smart, but I think it didn't work in France. It didn't work in um, Greece because Greeks didn't really bother about this whole exchange of animal exchange, the national animal. Not national animal. I think Egyptians had national animal is a giraffe. Sorry, a camel. I think. Yeah. So, hey, he should have given a camel. I think that would have been more appropriate for sealing up some deals out there, man. Anyways, so the plan didn't work out, but what the French people had was a huge giraffe from the Egyptian prince, okay? And 30,000 people turned out in the city's main square just to watch the giraffe. Now, I think this kind of reminds me of this movie, Madagascar, right? This is kind of like, it goes back to a lot of, real life stories, and that's how people kind of write their scripts. There's a reason why there's a movie because it probably happened in real life. Anyways, in conclusion, I'm going to conclude here. Power in today's age of information and internet will need credibility for any country to achieve successful public diplomacy. From the last quarter of the 28th century, the term open diplomacy had changed to public diplomacy. I believe it was open diplomacy many, many years ago. And now we have a new term which is called public diplomacy. And these are terms that needs to be emphasized if you want to do kind of a research on it, if you want to talk in public. There are certain lingos that keeps evolving and you need to keep up with that. Soft power is an essential tool for the exploitation and the delivery of good public diplomacy. I've already explained to you what is public and soft power. These tools are often used by professional diplomats, foreign ministers, and the government of a country. According to Joseph Nye, he points out that the effectiveness of public diplomacy is measured by mind change, not dollar spent or slick production packages. So it is very important. Joseph Nye said the importance of effective public diplomacy is a change of mind, not money, not some flashy advertisement, but the change of mind is very important. The struggle to combat terrorism also will not be successful, though sheer hard power only, but through credible and good public diplomacy. I think we can tackle terrorism, we can tackle fear mongering, we can tackle news mongering, fake news through good public diplomacy. And I think that's the key message here that I wanted to derive you on. Okay. All right. Okay. I think that's today. Now it's 11:05. So I started at when did I start here? I think I start around. Let me see. Okay. Okay, I started at 10 and now it's 11:06. So I think I'm going to take a picture here. Okay. Okay, guys. What the heck, man? All right, okay. I'm going to knock this out very soon. Just hang in here. So is there any questions? Any yes, thank you very much, Buffer. Any questions, any comments, please feel free. I'm here for maybe 10 minutes or so. Please feel free to comment, okay? Okay, I'm still waiting for the questions. Anybody? Okay, guys. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and God bless you. And I will come back again, and we'll talk about something more interesting. Hopefully, next time I'll do like a four people conversation, or maybe two, or something like that. You can come in and we can have a good chat. But best wishes to you, and I hope you have a very good time with your family. And take care very much. Okay. All right. Shalom. Bye bye.
We're under instruction to spare bullets. We use grenades instead. They kill more people than a bullet, said the commander of the operation to me.